Hello, Internet, and welcome back. Story Nook. Today we'll be reading more of I'd Rather Have a Cat Than a Harem. We're still on chapter 19. Our author is Kozuzu Kobato, and artist is Hinano Chano. And it's reincarnated into the world of an otome game as a cat-loving villainess. This is our main character, Amy. She's currently in class with her brother and his friends. So her brother Harold and his friends Gilbert and Nicholas. I had to remember their names. Yeah. And when we last left off, we were at these ellipses. And so, yeah. Go ahead, grab your tea, your water, your hot cocoa, whatever it is you want, and we'll get on with reading up until our next ellipses for about 15-ish minutes. Because it is early in the morning for me. That certainly looked like fun, said Isabella cheerfully, conjuring wind to dry their soaked clothes. I made some tea, so why don't you guys take a little break? Sir Dion, I appreciate you coming all the way out here. Then, addressing the group again, she added, I've set out some hot cake as well. What's hot cake? Wonder if that's an actual cake. Sorry, I got distracted. Hot cake can refer to different things. It can refer to a cottage cheesecake, a cottage pudding, cottage cake, a brand of baked goods. So, yeah. Alright. So, it's most likely a cottage cheesecake. The cottonut, which resembled a walnut as one of the tree nuts in this world, had contained magical powers. Eating them would not increase the total amount of magical powers a person could store in their body, but it would replenish any magic that had been depleted. Alright, completely different cake. It's walnut cake. These long-lasting baked goods, usually made with other tree nuts with similar effects, were popular as packaged foods for magicians. Sounds about right. Amy always became hungry after using magic. Her face glowed and her body looked up at Sir Dion. I am hungry, Professor. That's because you're often wasteful when you use magic. You mustn't forget to cast efficiently. Okay, sir. Amy knew she had been so excited to do a magic exercise with her brother and his friends that her focus had been too lax on her casting control. Even though you're doing advanced magic. Amy nodded somberly, and Sir Diem patted the top of her head. Tigger, who had guessed they were taking a break, got down from the tree and trotted over to Amy, tail upright. When he rubbed the sides of his body against her legs and meowed cutely at her, all she could do was smile and pet him. Amy and the three boys went to sit under the big gazebo in the corner of the garden for tea time. The adults and children naturally forked off and sat some distance apart, and the conversation shifted from the training exercise to the events of the day before. That reminds me, I've been wanting to tell you, Harold said, turning to Amy. This house has a waterway along the inside of the fence by the main road, right? Make extra sure that Tigger doesn't fall in. There were several canals connecting her grandfather's estates to the ocean and were useful for preventing trespassing and for emergency use in case of fires. They were not very wide, but they were deep, so the children had been warned over and over since they were little never to go near them. Amy tilted her head at the unnecessary warning. I know they're dangerous, but why bring it up now? You remember the deep-sea jellyfish that got caught up in that fishing boat? Apparently, that's where they set it free. I see. Deep-sea jellyfish had stingers and turned virtually invisible underwater, as the name implied. They typically lived in the deep sea, but they were hardy. They had been known to stay alive even in the sandbar. Her grandfather, it seemed, had boldly suggested that instead of returning it to the sea, they might as well put it to use preventing crime in the canal. Go, Grandpa. But enough of the deep-sea jellyfish, Harold. What about the girl from the boat that it got snagged on, said Nick. Oh, yeah, Gil chimed in. She was really chatting you up at the victory party, wasn't she? There had been a victory party for the successful kraken hunt at the army barracks the previous evening. Of course, with it being so late, the 10-year-old Amy did not attend. But the grandfather and granddaughter from the fishing boat they had saved showed up briefly to personally thank the hunting party members. Between Gilbert and Nicholas's teasing, Amy gathered that the granddaughter had said something to Harold at the party. Yeah, she said I was good with my dual blades, Harold said. During the battle, I think she was looking at me a lot, but that was because my sword stood out. Harold's blades were certainly eye-catching. However, when he barely managed to conceal a smug grin as he spoke, Amy wondered if he was only brushing it under the rug because she was sitting there. But she also ruminated over the fact that the hypothetical heroine had chatted with her older brother. Amy petted Tigger, who was sitting on her lap and purring contentedly, but she became very still. But then again, Hal was mostly underwater yesterday, and mused Nick. Was he really that active in the battle? I'm not sure. I was too busy on lookout duty, replied Gil. How heartless, cried Hal. Let me bask in the glow of Maria's compliment for a day at least before you start tearing me down. Amy's head popped up at the girl's name, and the hand she had been petting Tigger with froze in place. Tigger pressed his paws into her stomach grumpily. She unconsciously hugged him close, grateful for the way his magnificent weight pressed against her, grounding her. Her name is Maria. That means she must really be the heroine. Amy unconsciously popped a piece of cake into her mouth and munched loudly on the coconuts. So her name is Maria, said Nick. Well, what else did you guys talk about? Well, not much. She's the same age as Amy, though. Oh, she's that young. Tough break. Y'all saw her. Y'all saw her. What do you mean, tough break? How old does this girl look to y'all? It wasn't anything like that, Harold protested. She was just a fan of mine, or something like that. Rolling her eyes at the nosy back and forth of the three high school-aged boys. Amy picked out one of the cot nuts from the cake and gave it to Tigger. Cats love the crunchy, chewy nut, too. It didn't sound like Harold and Maria talked about anything particularly related to the game. Maybe I'll stop worrying just a little bit. As she chuckled at the cat gobbling up the cot fruit from her hand, a black shadow rose behind them. It looks like you've had enough of a break. Back to work. Sir Dion, already? Complained Harold. If I have to wait for you to get started, the lesson will only get harder from here. We're on our way, the boys yelped together, thanks to the comforting balm of having Tigger on her lap, along with the rigorous magical training that had followed by the time Amy returned to her room that night. She couldn't remember any of the worries she had over the hypothetical heroine. How long is this section? Well, we've got 6 minutes. Still love that they break the scenes with these cute cat paws. And so that was how the Kraken was subdued. I'm really glad no one ended up getting seriously hurt. I thought it was massive, but I was shocked when someone told me that it was only a medium-sized Kraken. I wonder why sea creatures get to be so big. Is it because the sea is so wide? Do you know, Ed? I was pretty surprised that Sir Dean had gotten on the hunting ship in advance, too. But he's been able to teach me magic here, so I can get lots of practice in. I know you're working really hard studying, so I'll work really hard too. Sincerely, Amy. Looking once more over the letter Rudolph had brought him, Edward carefully stored it in a drawer and left his room. It was still a little while before the agreed upon meeting time, but Edward had no intention of being late. Not that royalty was held to the same standards regarding punctuality. Edward could leave however late he wanted, and it would probably be impressive for the other person to refuse his visit. But Edward was not that arrogant, and he really didn't want to give a bad impression to the person he was about to see. Edward proceeded down the hallway with his 2 guards, and as he had countless times before. But this time, things felt different. Am I nervous? Edward wondered. Whenever he had interviews with special envoys from foreign kingdoms, went out on royal tours, or took in ceremonies, Edward would always be calm. His heart would never beat as quickly as it was now. He was a little amused at himself for feeling this way. He was only going to hear a lecture. When Edward arrived at the Institute of Magic, he was neither late nor absurdly early. He headed confidently towards the Department of Technology. When he informed the administrative officials that he had arrived, they nearly tipped over themselves to open the door. He reached the director's office and saw Joshua, the Earl of Northland, standing and waiting for him. "Welcome to the Institute of Magic, Your Highness," he said with a bow. Joshua was not only the clever director of the Department of Technology, he was also Amy's father. "Thank you for accepting my request for private lessons, Lord Northland," said Edward, bowing deeply. Joshua's eyes widened in surprise and admiration at the prince's courtesy. The two sat on the sofa for some time in mutual silence. Joshua was the first to break the ice. "I didn't know you had an interest in magical tools, Your Highness. Does it surprise you? It had been my understanding that the royal family was not at all that interested in technological advancements outside of times of war." Logical. Incidentally, Your Highness, I hope you don't feel like you have to be extra polite with me. I am just one of your subjects, after all. But you are not. Here, you are my teacher. I'm very grateful you are sparing some of your incredibly valuable time as the director to give me private lessons," Edward said without a trace of shame. Joshua once again stared at wonder. Shortly after the fiancé candidate tea party, the prince had started making overtures about wanting to study magical tools. The start date had been postponed due to scheduling conflicts. But in accordance with Edward's wishes, it had been decided that Joshua would give Edward private lectures 2 to 3 times a month. This damn cough won't leave me. It would have been very reasonable for Edward to ask Joshua to visit the royal palace for lectures, but the prince said he would make the trip out there for them, because he's a decent person. Overly. I don't know where they were. Or not. I'll have to find them later. But Joshua had no objections on that point. Some prototypes were prohibited from being taken out of the Institute of Magic, and some things, like the actual process of manufacturing the tools, needed to be seen in person as they were being explained. He seems different from the two older princes, thought Joshua. But if someone were to hear you, perhaps the Prime Minister wouldn't. Perhaps the Prime Minister wouldn't that raise some eyebrows? He takes notice of me very rarely, if ever. But either way, our conversations are not leaving this room, so it shouldn't be a problem. Joshua's own eyebrows lifted imperceptibly. Edward had said that so matter-of-factly, his face unmoved by his words. Joshua had known that the third prince had spent his whole life being pressured to be as unobtrusive as heir. But hearing Edward himself describe this reality, enforced even by the Prime Minister so emotionally, without a hint of solemn resignation or emptiness, brought out an emotion in Joshua that was very difficult to describe. I understand. As you wish, Your Highness. Well then, shall we begin? We'll start today from the basics. Because this is the very first lecture, we'll review similar concepts, and then we'll start talking about magical tools themselves. Oh, that's my 15-minute timer. I'm gonna finish this page because the next page is an image. Joshua took out a thin, round metallic object from his breast pocket. The cover opened with a click and revealed 3 clock hands of different colors. It looked like an ordinary pocket watch, but it was slightly different. The hands were all the same length and didn't seem to be ticking away time. That's the magical tool for communication, right? I've seen maids and guards use them before, Edward said, looking at the knight standing in front of the door. But the one you're holding looks a little different from the ones they use. Joshua nodded, looking thrilled that he spotted the difference. That's right, the type we supply to the royal palace only has 2 hands. This version with 3 is a prototype used for research purposes, so you've likely never seen one exactly like it before. Did you know there are notches on the bezel? Joshua pointed to the bezel, the exterior frame that circled the outer circumference of the tool's face. The numbers 0 to 9, as well as the star, moon, and sun designs, were engraved in fixed intervals around the bezel. And here we have Joshua showing the image to Prince Edward. He's showing him the watch that's here. Yeah, so that's it for this part of the chapter. I will continue next time. I hope you all stay safe, stay healthy, all that good jazz. And I will see you all next time. Thank you very much to my wonderful Patreon and Ko-fi supporters. Kaleidoscope Chick, Axel Alcaraz, Cassie G, Jet SDS, Semi Random Sevens, Micah, Tweet at Tea Cakes. I feel like I'm missing someone's name at the moment. Axel1154. I knew there was somebody I was missing. Thank you all for supporting me on Patreon and Ko-fi. If you support me on Patreon, you get early access to all of my videos and all that. If you support me on Ko-fi, that's where all my commissions are. You commission me there, and your name will also be read in the credits. If you want to get any of my artwork on anything, stickers, notebooks, t-shirts, you can get that at my Redbubble shop. I also have been writing ebooks, specifically short stories that I've been publishing. So those are out and available on most, if not all, ebook platforms. You can find those in the description within my link tree. Probably underneath my Smashwords account, and then from there it'll take you to all the bookstores it should be available on. But yeah, stay healthy, stay hydrated, do your best, and have a great day. Bye bye.